So welcome to the Tech Dev Circle. Right now I see the first guests moving in. So hello from Milena and me. And I think we are going to wait for some more minutes. So yes, there. Oh, it's nice. There are actually people listening and viewing from YouTube. So this is first. I guess you are real visitors. So yeah, say hello to us in the chat if you like. That would be very nice. And we are waiting for some more minutes before we begin with Milena's talk about uncertainty. So I am not uncertain that this is going to be a great talk. Word pun. And by the way, Milena, you can as well see in the chat. Okay, there's a public chat, and someone is saying hello. Nice, say hello. Yes, and this was from YouTube. Okay, so for you, dear visitors, we are streaming on multiple platforms. This is the first. Hey, by the way, Milena, I did not tell you, but this is an experiment. We are streaming to Twitch, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Riverside.
Nice.
Yes, yes. Currently, this is all looking quite nice. So yeah, happy that this is working. All right. And if you like, visitors and streamers, you can ask questions in the public chat. If you end your question with a question mark, defining it as a question, then it will immediately pop up, and then we can see and answer it. If you just want to give feedback, then you are also welcome to do that. And before I forget, at the very end of this talk, it would be very nice if you would leave some thumbs up, mainly thumbs up on meetup.com, because this platform lives from good reputation. And if you don't like the talk, which I don't expect, but if you didn't like it, then you can also leave a comment or yeah, give feedback, anything you want. All right, and Twitch is also online. More visitors coming in. Let's wait for one more minute. And for those of you who are here for the first time, so you are at the Tech Dev Circle. This is an event I am organizing for more than 10 years now. And this is happening not monthly anymore, but whenever I see a nice topic, this is all regarding technical topics that are of interest to anyone who wants to have a career, to build a career, or to develop deeper into a technical career. So this is about technical topics, about programming, about IT architecture, but also regarding what is known as soft skill topics. So I don't like that term. I think this is more than a key skill or a catalyst skill that enables you to do more and to work better. So this is all going to be here on this channel. All right, and yeah, it's 3 minutes after 5 p.m., at least here in Germany. So yeah, I say, hi Milena, it's great having you here. And I would say the stage is yours. So tell us about uncertainty and how to deal with it.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, hi, I'm Elena. I'm a software architect. And I will probably just move through the slides and then answer eventual questions in the chat later. If there's a highly important question, Stephen, maybe just stop me. I don't ignore the chat. It's just like, yeah, very overwhelming to always look into two places. So just anytime stop me, Stephen, and tell me if there's something in the chat we should discuss. So yeah, hi and welcome to the talk about uncertainty. So today we're going to talk about making decisions under uncertainty. And this doesn't mean that you're going to make better decisions afterwards. I can't promise that. So actually, when I learned about all of this, I got really confused actually for a while, and I started to make decisions with more attention to what I was doing, and it really confused me. But I think it's just like really important, and maybe it will explain why you did some decisions you made in the past and why you did them the way you did them. So yeah, we're going to talk about decision making under uncertainty. And actually, we're going to first talk about the world in which we make decisions because our world is very complex. So we're going to talk about the world of risk and the world of uncertainty. And then we're going to talk about the decision maker, which one could be like a very rational person, like a Homo economicus, or even you have human factors because you're all humans. And then, of course, we're going to talk about ecological rationality, which is like your daily life and how you make decisions in your daily life. So let's start. First, we're going to talk about the world. So you probably all know about the world of risk, which is a very small world compared to our world, because the world of risk is very probable. So what is a risk? The risk is the potential that a decision will lead to loss or an undesirable outcome, so that you will lose something like losing money. So risk is from mass the multiply to multi I don't get the word. You have to multiply consequence with probability, and then you have the risk. So you have a consequence, which usually is something negative, like losing money, and the probability that this will happen. So if you look at roulette, you have a very well calculative probability that you will lose something. So that is your risk, and you can calculate it, and then you can decide if you want to play or not. So there's a difference about making decisions under risk, because risk is mathematically as like you can estimate it, you actually have a number, while uncertainty cannot be calculated. It's very random. So the world of uncertainty is a lot larger than the world of risk. And when we talk of uncertainty, we talk of two different types of uncertainty. So first, we have the epistemic or systemic uncertainty. This means a lack of knowledge. You all know this. So you have to make a decision, but you really don't have all the cues. You don't have all the facts. You maybe haven't had much experience in the domain. So this can be reduced by getting additional information. So you can learn, or you can ask consultants or experts. We do this in the IT every day. So if we have to make an important decision or politics, we hire a consultant and we ask him, hey, what would you do? Or can you give me more information? Just give me some consultation on what I should do. So here you have to increase the information, and then you can lower the uncertainty, and you can actually, maybe if you get all the answers to your questions, to actually have a decision under risk. So still stuff can happen, so there can be a lot of outcomes, but at least you know all the outcomes eventually. So the other the other uncertainty we have is the aleatoric or statistical uncertainty. And actually there's not much you can do about this in our real world. So you call, for example, negative events that can happen under statistical uncertainty black swan events. Like swan events can be events like the 9/11s or the 2007 financial crisis or Fukushima. So now in like after all of this happened, people say, hey, we could have known this, we could have seen it. But actually, in advance to all of this, no one could have seen it. So this is just stuff that happens that you cannot mathematically get or calculate, or when you make a decision, kind of think of, oh, this could happen, we could have another financial crisis. You can assume it, but you will never know. Like they kind of like hit you, and you don't know. So maybe think about what would be statistical uncertainties in your projects. Sometimes something hits your project that you couldn't even have thought about, even if you had really had under control all the facts and all the circumstances. So there's just like in our world, criteria we will never predict. So now you see the two worlds. We have the world of risk. We know all the alternatives, the consequences, the probabilities. So this is a very small world that you can play in. But the real world is the world of uncertainty, and their information is unknown or even unknowable, which is even worse. So this is like a large world, and this is kind of the world we are going to talk about today, because this is the world that we make decisions in. So the world of uncertainty has questions like where to invest money, or should I hire this applicant, or who to date? And whoever made these decisions in the past knows that this can go wrong because there's so many factors you don't know. So when actually you read studies about making decisions, it's really hard, even for science still, to get a grasp of them, because in experimental setups usually don't get the world of uncertainty because there's so many variables and factors. So usually when you talk about decision making and risks, you are always in the world of risk. So it's really hard to study decision making under uncertainty. Also because it's very complex, because we live in a multi-dimensional world where you have multi-dimensional dependencies and the system is just not graspable. So looking at the decision of who should I date, there's so many options and so many things that can go wrong and so many things you don't know that you will most likely always make the wrong decision. Um, yeah, so what did science do to kind of like study decisions under uncertainty? And I have read many books about it, and we had it also in I come from the area of psychology in my studies, and there's actually um, three main studies that have been done here. So one is the normative: how should people make decisions? So it's a whole science about if you want to make a good decision, how should you do it? But then others said, well, but people just make decisions. They can think about how to make decisions all the time. They just do them. So that's the descriptive approach, which is the studies about how do people actually make decisions. They do every day. And then there's the third kind, which is very interesting, is the heuristics. It's a form of descriptive studies, but it's a very specific one we're going to talk about today. So these are the three main courses in the science of uncertainty decision theories, and we're going to talk about all of them. So let's start with the normative ones, and let's look at the decision maker here. So the perfect decision maker is the Homo economicus. He's completely rational, and he's only looking at, okay, I can have wins and I can have losses. And I'm just going to go by what can I win, what can I lose. But it's just not that simple. So we have the expected utility theory, and here we're going to make like a slight mind experiment. Imagine you go on the street and randomly you find a lottery ticket for $1 million. So with 50% chances, you can win $1 million. Now there comes a multimillionaire around the corner, because you're just around the right corner. And there comes this multimillionaire and he says, hey, I'm going to buy your lottery ticket for 500,000 bucks. So for $500,000. So yeah, you cannot win the 1 million anymore, but you're going to have $500,000 for sure. Would you sell it, or would you keep the lottery ticket and play? Think about it. Maybe everybody can make their own decision, and most likely all of us will take
We can also make a poll.
yeah.
So if you
Oh yeah,
like,
we
I
can do
would.
that. Yeah.
All right.
So basically, we can do that on the side and then look at the results later. But I'm pretty sure what most of you will say. Okay, Steven is typing.
Just have to set it up. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll just keep going while people can. Yeah. Okay. So then I'm not gonna tell you what you guys most likely are gonna pick. But here you see that a multimillionaire would make a completely different decision. He has so much money that for him it doesn't really count if he actually loses or wins. It's just like a fun game to him. But to us, $1 million already hires up so much that 1 million isn't that far away. Like $500,000 is already worth so much. It's kind of comparable with if you have a homeless person, that €1 is like a lot too, because they can actually spend the night at a shelter. But for us, if we lose €1, yeah, it sucks, but it doesn't destroy our lives. So it's marginal utility. So actually the value is not absolute, but it's relative to what we have. I'll just keep going here, and actually you can calculate that, and that's what is being done in economics. So the value of every additional euro gets lower the more you have. So you don't have like a linear curve, but you have more like this kind of curve where every euro gain is less in value, and you can calculate that. I'm just gonna jump over the math here because it's late at night and you probably are not looking forward to doing any math. So I'm going to jump over this. And actually, even multi-attribute decisions can be calculated. And this is what politics does in a certain way. Your company probably does not only think about getting money and losing money, but there's other factors to consider that you can actually measure, like safety, comfort, but also the health of employees or the satisfaction of employees. So they will stay on the long term and you can make more money. So there is multiple attributes, but in economics, you can still calculate them. And of course, we have cost-effective policies. So also politics is using these economic thoughts when they make decisions. So for example, one example in Australia would be, hey, should we spend money to set up shark fences for our surfers? Or should we spend the same money because we only have like this amount of budget to spend on safety for our people? Should we rather set up fences in the pool so the little kids that cannot swim are not going in the deep water and drown? And since there's like a lot more little kids drowning in pools than surfers being eaten from sharks, you would probably save the 100 people instead of the 13 people, which makes it ethically, as you can see, very hard if we do economic decisions because every life is worth the same. So it's not like 100 lives are worth more than 13 lives, but at some point, also politics have to make economic decisions, which is called the utilitarianism. Hard words in English. It's the sum of individual utilities. So you will look at the whole society as one and see who gets the most outcome from how we spend money for everybody. And this is why actually in democracy you vote. And of course the party with the most people wins because they are going to support what is best for most people. Yes. So now we come from Homo economicus, a very rational approach to human factors, because humans are just not rational. I mean, you know, probably from yourself, you make decisions and afterwards you're like, what made me do this? Like if I would have done the math, if I would have written on all the facts, did my pro cons list, I would have come to a different conclusion, or you know, oh, this is really wrong what I'm doing here, but I really want to do it. So there's human factors that actually influence all of us. So one is the prospect theory. So we have like a certain behavior that you can see in people on how they react towards losses and towards profits, which is the prospect theory. So imagine, and this is another game for your mind, we don't have to do a poll for that, because I think it's very obvious for each of you, we all are pretty much the same. So imagine someone comes up to you and he says, hey, I give you 400 euros, or if you want, you can play with me. We can toss a coin, and with 50%, you have the chance to gain 900 euros. Would you either take the 400 for sure, or would you actually gamble and maybe win 900 euros? And it's almost the same as the example we had before, but it's slightly different. Most of you would probably take the 400 euros and be like, oh, that's nice. I won 400 euros. That's great. Let's look at the other way around. So a person comes to you and says, maybe your your friend says, I don't know, who would take 400 euros from you? Someone would come up and would say, hey, you owe me 400 euros. And he says, but you don't have to give me the money if you gamble, because I like to gamble, and you don't owe me anything if we gamble and you win. We toss a coin again, and either you lose nothing, so I'm gonna spare you the 400 euros, you can keep them, or you lose $900. And in the case of losing, you would probably be more risk taking and be like, okay, you know what? I have the chance to not pay anything. I'll take that chance. And if I lose, yes, that's like twice as worse, because I'm not only gonna lose the 400 euros, but I'm gonna lose the 900 euros. So actually, when it comes to loss, we are more ready to take risks. While when it comes to profit, we try to not, like, we're not ready to gamble. We're just gonna take whatever. And this comes from actually where we stand. The point where you stand, you're usually at a good point, and actually you don't want to lose. You don't want to make your decision worse. So you're gonna do anything to not make your decision worse. You're even gonna gamble, but you're okay with where you are. So why not just take? If you can have more, you would be okay with not having anything. So why would I gamble? So that's actually the prospect theory, and it's not very rational behavior that we have, but most people are like this. Most people would go like this when it comes to wins and losses. So also we have stuff like the status quo bias. So when you go to a restaurant, and I think everybody knows this, I know this from my favorite restaurant I go to with friends like once a week, and we sit there, and every time I'm like, oh, should I try something new from the cart? Should I get something new from the menu? And then I would be like, oh no, I'm just gonna be so disappointed if I don't like it. I'm just gonna take my go-to food because I'm for sure gonna be happy. So we don't like making decisions if we already have our go-to because we are scared of actually the loss that we could not enjoy it. And that's bigger than the hope for gain. So we would rather not risk finding something better, but instead just take the whatever makes us happy. So we always see the status quo, so where we stand, what we are happy with, as the safe thing. Like it can't go worse. If we take a risk, it can go worse. And then also there's stuff like regret avoidance. So you don't want to regret anything because then if I order a new food, which I don't like as much, I'm just gonna sit there and be like, oh, this is okay, but I think the other thing would have been better. So I would just regret it the whole time, and I want that feeling. And also decision making is just stressful. Like we don't want to make decisions, and actually not doing anything new is also a decision, but it just doesn't feel like a decision. But that's how humans are. Then we have the endowment effect. So you probably notice you got an old car, like your first car, and it's super, super ugly and it barely drives. But when you sell it, you want a much higher price than you yourself would be willing to pay. It's just because stuff that already is in your basket that you already owe just has such an emotional attachment to it, and that makes it worth so much more that you feel like this object is worth so much more. People should be willing to pay for it. So you actually give things a higher value that have a symbolic or emotional significance for you, that are in your ownership, which doesn't make sense to everybody else, just to yourself. If you sell your old shoes for $50. And then, of course, you all know this from marketing. We have stuff like framing, and marketing does actually use a lot of these decision-making kind of like things that the human factors when we make our daily decisions in buying. So decisions that are impacted by the way of how the information is presented. This is called framing. So below you see the typical example. You have shoes for $90. If they are presented to you in a different way, like, hey, they're now $90, but you are actually saving $80, and this deal ends today, so you have to be fast, then obviously it becomes like more worse shoes, like it's a better deal for you, even if you pay the same price. So the decisions you make are influenced by how these decisions or how the context is framed. And also a human anomaly. And then, of course, we make individual and societal decisions, and we make them very different. So, for example, if you text while driving, you make a very dangerous decision on texting while driving, which you don't only make for yourself, but you're endangering your whole environment. The abortion rights are actually decisions that a whole society makes for single people within society. So it's not an individual decision, but it's a decision that people force on certain individuals in society. And then the third one is antibiotics for farm animals. So politics decide to feed animals antibiotics, and you all have to cope with it. So it's like a decision that is made by people who you actually voted for or not, but people that were voted by the public, and it's a common decision that is made for everybody. So these decisions, like how your decisions influence everybody else, you might make different decisions if you know, oh, there's other people that will be affected by it, hopefully. So actually, I really like this quote. Better never means better for everyone. It always means worse for some, because when we make societal decisions as human beings, we barely ever make a decision that everybody will profit from, but we always try to make a decision that either us, ourselves, our close ones, or the broad mass will profit from. So in politics, this is actually guided by societal decision guidelines, which I think is very interesting, just because decision making is so hard, especially in politics, where they really influence people's lives. So an example that you might know from the Corona pandemic, we have the precautionary principle. It's the main principle right now of the EU environmental law. So basically, imagine in earlier times, you wanted to build like a new village, and there were hamsters that were kind of dying out. So they were just building the village, and afterwards, some activists came and would be like, "Hey, what are you doing to the hamsters? Why are you killing the hamsters?" And they had to fight the building company. And this principle turns it around, and it says, hey, before you build a village, you have to prove to me as a state that there's no hamsters, endangered hamster species living there, so you don't endanger anyone. And actually, this principle is also being used, for example, in AI. Hey, make sure first, if you use it, it will not hurt anyone. But it's also used for the corona pandemic to say, hey, we're just not moving. Everybody stay at home. Don't do anything before we know what the outcomes will be. Just don't act before you know what's going to happen. And you probably all know this word or this speech like better safe than sorry. And this is kind of what the principle guides the politicians and the people who make big decisions for the whole society. So that's really interesting, I think. So we talked a lot about risk earlier, and I mentioned the word consequences. What are consequences? We all know about monetary consequences. We are losing money. But there's also non-monetary consequences that come from our decisions. That would be like a loss of comfort, loss of convenience, maybe time. So I will not be on time. I will miss my plane, or I have to wait for a long time. Then there are social consequences like fame or embarrassment, and also, of course, consequences in career. Either I'll make career up, I will lose my career, I will lose my job, and also health consequences. So we have like lots of consequences that can come out of a decision with a certain risk. But we also have rewards. So if we make a decision, there's also good stuff that come out of it, or why we make a decision, because we hope for rewards. And there's two kinds of rewards. So there's first the primary rewards, which are fundamental for survival, and they're also mostly biological needs. So these would be food, safety, water, sleep, but also sexual pleasure. And then we have the secondary rewards, which usually are the rewards that we actually gain. So there's money, status, attention. And these secondary rewards usually don't consume directly, but you exchange them for primary rewards. So we have consequences versus rewards. And there's another very interesting heuristic when we talk about human factors. It's that people estimate missing probabilities from learned risk-reward relationships. So you see a tombola on the right. And if you know, in the tombola, I can win like the newest iPhone. And in another tombola, you can win a chocolate bar. You would probably assume that it's more likely you're going to win in a chocolate bar tombola because the price is just not that high. So you assume if I can win something big, it must be really hard to win. The same thing for conferences. For example, if you actually are attending conferences, you probably assume in the conferences that are much more bigger, much more popular, there's more money spent, it's probably harder to get in because the reward of being actually accepted there is a lot higher, but you don't even know how many tombola tickets there are or how many people actually put in their paper in the call for paper. So you don't even know how likely it is to win it, but you assume just from the price you can win how likely it will be that you win. And this is just a heuristic you have learned from earlier times, but it doesn't prove you anything. Yeah, and we come to the last human factor, because for us it's very hard to grasp the long-term effects of the decisions we make. So here we are talking about reversibility and revocability of consequences, which is also in regards to climate change very important. So first of all, you have the revoking costs. So if I do something and it goes wrong and I hit the bad consequences, how hard will it be for me to go back to where I come from? For example, you invest something with a company, you invest time or money, and then it fails. How hard will it be for me to recover or to take back that decision? And also, it's really hard for human beings to think like long term. Most likely, you make decisions for the next day, but it's really hard to make decisions for the next couple years or decades, or even for the children of your children of your children, like for your grandchildren. So this is what we see right now in climate change, that earlier generations most likely did not make decisions thinking about their grandchildren. And when we talk about reversibility, we also have to talk about uniqueness, because there's resources that we consume that cannot be recovered. So this is actually something that you cannot revert. Same as if you have an amputation of your hand, you will most likely be able to kind of like replace it, but you will like to substitute it, but you will never regain your hand. So there's just decisions that can never be reversed. In business, we also have these decisions. everybody knows that money can actually be reverted, because we can always, of course, money is just like a resource that will always be there. But there's irreversible investments, and you all know irreversible investments lead when the sales price is lower than the purchase price, and you just spend more money than comes in, and companies go bankrupt, and the purchase price cannot be recovered in the future. And this is when the business failed and cannot be recovered. So this is about the same. So we have to think about irreversibility and revocability. Also in IT, I'll come to all the IT stuff later. So it's not completely non-IT talk. Right. And then the really last human factor are the somatic markers. Somatic markers are actually changes in your body or brain that are associated with emotions. So imagine you drive down a road where you have to have the speed of 50 miles per hour, but you go much faster. You go 70 miles per hour. And now you're gonna be caught by the police. It's a very, like, not sad, but probably annoying. And the next time you drive down that road, you're probably going to stick to the 50 miles per hour just because you know how annoying it would be to be stopped again. So you will remember a bad decision you made. And the next time you make a similar decision, your mind will remember, this is how bad I felt when I made this decision. I'm not going to do this again. So this is actually how we learn from decisions. It's called somatic markers. And the cool thing about human beings is that we have an as-if body loop. So before we make a decision, we can feel, like, we can pretend how we would feel in certain outcomes of that decision. And we can say, oh, if this happens, I would feel really bad, so I'm not going to do it. That's pretty cool. And this is actually how emotions kind of guide you in decision making. And this is what some people call follow your gut. Folge dein Bauchgefühl in German. So yeah. Now we come to the third and last chapter, the environmental structure. So we already know about the world. There's a big world of uncertainty, a small world of risk, and then there's decision maker, and we all are human beings. So we have human factors. We're not completely rational. But there's also something other that really kind of like pushes in on decision making that makes it not very rational, and that's the environmental structure around us. So there's something called bounded rationality. So decisions is the rational choice would be that decision is based on or in accordance with reason and logic. This is what we perfectly would like it to be like, but it's not like this because we have bounded rationality. So knowledge, time, and computational power are limited. So if you're standing in front of a traffic light, and I'm sure everybody did before, you see that it's red, but you have to go to this appointment. There's no car inside. It's a beautiful sunny day, so you can see the whole street, and you make the decision to go, even if it's red. If you would make a personal, rational choice, the traffic light is red, so you just don't go. That would be perfectly rational. Like an AI agent would probably, it's red, stand, it's green, you can go. But you make choices much faster according to environmental circumstances. So humans make a decision that is satisfactory and not optimal. So we just try to make a decision that satisfies us and try to take into account all the environmental circumstances, which, yes, it can go wrong, because if you have overseen like a car, you will be driven over. And ecological rationality means that you actually adapt the decision strategy according to your environment. While in the world of risk, you can make it value-based and statistical. In uncertainty, we often use heuristics because there are so many factors that influence our decision that we cannot take into account all the circumstances around us, but we have to filter out the most important ones and just do whatever in this moment feels right according to what we know. So what is a heuristic? It's fast and frugal, or they're also called fast and frugal heuristics. They lose less information, computation, and time. So we make them really, really fast. Most decisions you make really, really fast. They ignore part of the information, so you're not considering all circumstances, and they're very effective under circumstances of bounded rationality. So in case you have like a lot of things going on around you. What are erroneous beliefs about heuristics that I hear a lot? Heuristics are always second best. Optimization is always better. This is not true. Heuristics can actually be the better choice. Second, we only use heuristics due to limited cognitive resources. Also, this is not correct. It's actually a good thing. Even if we had like tons of cognitive resources, it would probably take far too long and not lead to the better decision. I'll come to why in a second. And people rely on heuristics only in routine decisions of little importance. This is not correct. Even if you decide who you want to marry, you are most likely using heuristics for this. And I would consider this an important decision. So let's look at one heuristic that is very interesting if you look at the stock market, which is the 1 divided by n or equality heuristics, which says allocate your resources equally to each n alternatives number of options. So we can see this on the stock market. If you actually put your money on very, very many packages on the market, you are most likely to gain slowly, but to gain, and you're not taking these many risks. But it also can be seen in, for example, if you have 3 children and you spread your love equally between them, you will probably have the most outcome in getting love back from all of your children. So this is a very simple heuristic, and that if we actually divide our resources equally, that we will get most of it. Yeah. I'm not going to go deeper into this. Usually now I'm going very deep into AI, but I'm not going to do that today because it would take far too long. So why do heuristics, and actually this could be proven on the stock market, that the 1 divided by n heuristic works a lot better than the portfolio strategies, and that a lot of very brilliant mathematical people did, that heuristics actually most often work better in a world of uncertainty, and also the stock market is a world of uncertainty. They often outperform optimization strategies, but why? So first of all, there's the accuracy effort trade-off. So the assumption is, and I think we all think that optimization minimizes the error. So if I put in my computer like a lot of information and he's going to calculate and calculate and calculate, eventually he's going to give me all the outcomes and he's going to tell me, okay, this is most likely and this is what you want. But more computation is not better precision, actually. This only works if performance can be measured. And in an uncertain world, you never know what's going to happen next. So you cannot even know if I make one decision and another decision and another decision, is actually this what made me get to here. There's no way to track if like the whole sum of your decisions actually brought you to where you're at. So we cannot really track it. So we can also not know if we actually made the best way through the world. And the second is the bias variance dilemma, and I'm pretty sure most of you have heard of this. The less is more effect. So we always have fitting and prediction. So usually we look at the past. That could be values and statistics or just our experience. And then we try to make, with what we know, a prediction of what will happen next. So you have maybe in the supermarket made a lot of decisions before. Now you're standing in the supermarket in front of the milk, and you're deciding which milk to take next. And now with all the experience from the last decades that you have about milk, you can try to make the best decision on what milk to buy, from like costs, from taste, from maybe environmental sustainability. And you can try to look at old data in order to make good decisions in the future. But if we look at old data, the problem is that we might take certain outbreakers, fluctuations, in the test data, that we give them too much value. So this is called overfitting. So maybe things like data is very fluctuative, and we have to have a lot of data to see the fluctuations in the data. And this is actually also what happens in computers. And the other way around would be that we make wrong assumptions in our learning algorithms. So we do underfitting. So we completely ignore these fluctuations. And it's really hard to actually take old data and flat it and take it to actually predict the best outcome, because there are so many fluctuations in data. Like, you need a lot of data. And usually we don't have the data available when we decide if we go over a street or not. So what do we use? We use heuristics. So we take a few arguments, the things that we right now assume are really important to use, and then we make a fast and frugal decision. One would be tallying. That's a typical heuristic. It's also called unit weight linear modeling. And this is to estimate a criterion. Do not estimate weights, but simply count the number of positive cues. So for example, in IT, you have to decide between two frameworks, let's say Angular and React. And you can't really decide, so you make a list of the 3 most important criteria for you personally. So you say, okay, the costs, how well is it documented, and how easy will it for my developers to be used. And then you have framework A, framework B, you make classes, and then you just count. And in this case, framework B would win. You most likely have not considered all circumstances, all eventualities. Will this framework become cost intensive? Is this maybe from a vendor that will take it off the market? You cannot consider all the criteria. You just have to take the most important criteria and then put them up against each other. So that would be a heuristic that would go much faster and would most likely bring you to a good result. Then you have to take the best heuristic. So if you want to decide what option is best, just by looking at one cue or characteristic. So again, if you're standing in front of milk, you probably are looking at the price and not at all the other factors, like are the cows actually happy, or is the milk having like a special price that it won. So probably you're just gonna take one cue and then you're gonna go by that cue, and that would most likely when you go shopping be the price. Then you have the recognition heuristic. If one or two objects is recognized and the other is not, then infer that the recognized object has higher value with respect to the criteria. So if you have Pepsi and cola, and when you were a child you always have to drink cola, then you would probably rather take cola because you already know it's a good choice and it seems familiar immediately. We have satisfying. This is actually really interesting if you are one of the people interviewing new people for your company. For example, there's a new developer and he has to fulfill certain things, like he has to have a certain level at Java, he has to maybe work with cloud before, so you have a list of things that you have to check. He has to be nice, maybe worked as a lead before, or be ready to learn new stuff. So you have maybe 20 people applying. So you go to the first 5, and after the 5th one, you say, hey, this candidate actually checks all my marks. And then why would you actually interview the rest, like the last 15? Like, because with every interview you give, you will spend more time and you will lose time. And this one was satisfying enough. So why even look at the other 15? So basically, satisfying means search for alternatives and choose the first one that exceeds your aspiration level. So even if within the next 15 there would have been a much better candidate, you're satisfied, it's fine, don't waste more time. And the last one I'm going to show you is the imitate the successful. So we look at someone who has made a lot of success in their life and we try to imitate their behavior because most likely what they did must have worked. And this is also a heuristic that's very simple and that can bring you a lot of success. Yeah. So as you can see, heuristics as just like very, very short and fast and easy decision kind of like helpers can bring you to a very good decision, even if they don't consider all the surroundings and all the environmental facts. They can help you go over these human factors and not be fooled by them. So now I'm going to take the last part. Actually, what does all of this have to do with IT? Because I made this talk and there's like subsections on AI and stuff because I keep reading about it, because I think that decision making is just such a fundamental part of everyday life, not only in our private lives, but also in what we do in companies and in our job. And since I'm an architect, actually, it's even more important to me because I have to make more and more severe decisions. So now I'm going to tell you like how I see decision making in IT. So how we actually deal with uncertainty, which we have in the IT industry in our daily lives every day. So first of all, you probably all know the agile frameworks, and they have a lot to do with this. So projects, obviously, face unexpected changes on the market, organizations, or laws. So the market changes, there's no new needs, old needs are not there anymore. And in earlier times, you did have the waterfall model, which is not a bad thing. That can be a good thing. I'm not totally against waterfall models. Or models that actually, it doesn't have to be waterfall, but that make a huge plan, and then you just take like a long time to execute this plan, but you're not gonna adjust the plan again when something happens. So in this case, it can happen that decisions are just made too early in the process. You are not adjusting and that brings you to a bad conclusion or to a bad result. Maybe after 3 years of development, the tool is just not needed anymore or not needed in that form. So what was the need? The need was to be more iterative, to be more incremental and evolutionary. So to adjust your processes, but also the product, and kind of like the lifestyle on working, just have as we have to do right now with AI, fast, and to do it according to what happens on the market. So in the 1970s, there were the first things going into this direction. So there was evolutionary management, also the adaptive software development, and right now we are in the area of agile frameworks. So we have short sprints. We talk about what did we do, what is the next thing we have to do? Do we have to adjust? Do we have to change stuff? So we kind of like go evolutionary, we go iterative and incremental, which give us the chance to adjust. So one important phrase of the Agile Manifesto is reacting to change is more important than following a plan. Of course, you're still following a goal, but you divide this goal into sub-goals, and this is the principle of sub-goals, which I just described with, for example, sprints. So you have a procedural rationality. There's no global, non-measurable objective, but intermediate goals that can be observed and measured. So you do have an overall goal, but you have these in-between goals, and after each goal you reach, you decide what will be my next goal. And this way you can adjust and be way more flexible and make decisions where you should make them and when you should make them. And it gives us way more flexibility and safety. The next one is architects. Like I said, this is really interesting for me. And this is actually from Neil Ford. If you have read books of him, this is a graph that comes not exactly like this, but the first person I saw this from was from Neil Ford. This is the knowledge press versus depth. So there's always things that you do know and you know for sure, and you will never lose this knowledge. Then there's stuff you know you don't know, which is okay. I know these databases exist. I know these vendors exist. I know these clouds exist. I don't know how to actually use them. I don't know much about them, but if I need to, then I know they exist and I can learn more about them. And then there's the dangerous stuff, the stuff that you do not know, that you do not know. Like you just don't know that they exist, but they're like a black hole for you. And actually, he says that this is the stuff you have to maintain. This is the technical depth that you have. But then there's the technical press. So like all the stuff that you do know, this you have to just like always read blog articles, read about new technologies that are there, just so you know it exists, and try to not lose the stuff you already know in its depth, and try to minimize this like part. Because, and there we're talking about the uncertainty, you are just going to lower your uncertainty if you know more, and if you have more breadth on the market, then you can make better informed decisions because you just have more information. And then also there's a quote from Robert T. Martin that you probably all know. A good architect pretends that the decision has not been made and shapes the system such that those decisions can still be deferred or changed for as long as possible. A good architect maximizes the number of decisions not made. So actually this refers to what we learned earlier when it comes to reversibility and revocability. So don't make decisions too early in the process, because later on it might be more expensive to return to where you come from, or to actually make the decision to oh my God, you know what I mean, to reverse the decision. And that can be a lot more expensive if you make the decision too early. So just wait with certain decisions until you are informed, but also until you really have to make the decision, and keep it open if you don't have to make this decision immediately. That can help architects to actually design a system step by step with a lot of knowledge, gain knowledge before they make a decision, and not make things too early and then have to fix it or run into a bottleneck. And yeah, then we of course have an IT management, and that was actually what made me do this talk, because I wanted to understand how our management made their decisions, because often I did not understand what made them make their decisions. So I tried to understand, and actually when management makes decisions where they have to deal with risky decisions, this is a study from 2006, which I found very interesting. It's on how managerial decisions were made under risk and uncertainty. And actually, like a lot of CEOs were questioned on how they made or what they did with decisions. And it's really funny because most of the management said they would delegate decisions. And then they said they just avoid taking risk and just take the safe course if they feel like one decision would lead to too many risks. They would delay a decision if possible. They would actively work on the problem to reduce risk. Now that we know about risk, probably they're not talking only about risk, but also of uncertainty. They check different aspects of the problem, or they would just collect more information. That's pretty straightforward, exactly what you would recommend them to do. Also, other things how management deals with decisions under uncertainty is buying insurance. So in case it goes wrong, they have at least some fallback, carrying out pilot studies. So kind of like to test where are we going, what's going to happen, or they make a checklist of points to consider, which of course makes sense if you kind of just want to sort out your brain. I do that as an architect a lot as well. Or sign away at least part of the risk to partners. So maybe work with other IT companies, or maybe sign away the risk to a customer. That's also common things that we do in order to not take the whole risk or all the consequences. And then there's this really interesting study, which I just wanted to show, as we talked earlier about the somatic markers. Here, like 1,000 US CEOs were asked on when they made a decision on capital allocation. So every CEO has a certain capital that he can put in his company and reinvest, so something will grow and come out of it, how they make these decisions. And actually, these are the top 7 factors on how they make decisions. And it's really funny because the 7th one was gut feel. So this is not a rational thing, but they actually use their gut feel to make a very, very important decision. So also management does rely on these somatic markers and their gut feel. So when we look at organizations, how do organizations, and here we come to societal or like global decisions that one person makes for everybody, or a lot of people make for many people, or many people make for one person. So there we have different structures and how decisions are being made in organizations. Maybe think of your organization and like just your employee or your company or your startup, wherever you work, and think of how they actually do make their decisions. So there's 2 things. So either they make them centralized or decentralized, which means do you have like one boss and he makes all the decisions. That's very centralized. Or you make them decentralized. So actually your company is split up into many sub companies or sub teams, and all of these teams, they can make their decisions for themselves. That's just like a decentralized structure. So there's like maybe not this global head office that makes the decisions for the whole globe, but maybe in Italy, in Germany, in Austria, they can make their own decisions. And then there's also a culture in every organization on how to make decisions. And I talked to my husband, who is working for the Deutsche Bahn. I'm at Adesso, and actually we figured out that both companies make decisions here very different. So you want to have the autocratic. This is if you don't have so much trust in your subordinates. So you don't give up, like you give up small decisions, like not that hard, like difficult decisions or that will destroy your company, to subordinates, to other employees. Or they will most likely stay in the upper hierarchy. Or you can make it democratic, so you can either ask your employers in surveys, what do you think, what would you do, or you actually give it up to like yeah, like if you have, for example, in my company, we have little, how do you call them, departments, for example, for certain domains, or that's like consultants or architects, and they each can make their decisions for themselves. And actually, then there's like a lot of trust in your subordinates that they will make decisions that will actually promote the whole company. And usually, actually, right now in companies, huge decisions are not being made computer aided. Of course, probably every boss once in a while talks to ChatGPT, but usually we don't like actually calculate that with a computer, like and make a computer fully make our decisions. Yeah, so organization, I want to play a little game maybe. I don't know, Stephen, if people can hold up hands, right? They can.
Actually, not because we are streaming on multiple
Okay.
platforms, so I have to set up a
Yeah,
poll
right.
for
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Then people can just think for themselves if they would actually say yes or no. So I'm gonna read out a quote. And you're just gonna in your head say yes or no. Think of one organization. It actually doesn't have to be your employee. It could also be your sports club, or your band if you wanted to, any kind of organization. Decisions are made democratically, but not when it comes to big decisions. Does this go for your organization, yes or no? Just think about it. Second one, more important decisions are made higher up in the hierarchy. Yes or no? And then there's a built-in culture that tells people what is right and what is wrong. And this is actually very interesting because sometimes there is not even a decision, even if it feels like a decision, but it's very clear on what the people around you want you to do. So just think of your organizations, maybe multiple ones, because in every organization and also in IT organizations, maybe in customer organizations that you work within or for, they have very different decision strategies and organization. So last two slides. What did you learn here, or what can I maybe summarize for you if you have learned something? How can we now actually make decisions? And there's no way to make the optimized or perfect decision. As I said, human beings usually make the most satisfying decision, not the most optimized decision. But here's four things that actually help me make decisions on what I read so far. The first is postpone decisions if possible and minimize uncertainty. The second one is disassemble problem domains and challenges with complete certainty. And I'm pretty sure that all architects and devs here know this. Don't like take a clump of problems and solve it all at once. Try to kind of separate these problems and solve each for one. And number three, keep it system solutions document, etc. evolutionary. And also this is something all architects heard. Like don't make the system like keep it extensible, keep it open for change, fast change. Also your documents, never like print a document and say now it's done. It will most likely need change after a while because the market changes, we change, the world changes, and therefore our systems and our documents change. And number four, in doubt, it's okay to use heuristics. So don't try not to use heuristics. Heuristics can actually help you make decisions. They're not something you just do because you don't have enough computative resources in your brain. It's actually a helpful method to make good decisions. Yeah, yeah. Here you can see me. Usually I'm doing this talk with my colleague. You see me here too. And then I would stop sharing and answer questions.
Great, Milena. Thank you so much. So, to the audience, you can ask your questions either in the chat or you can also request a call in. So the one of you who join us via a Chrome-based browser, you can just click on the call in sign, should be on the right side somewhere. And in the meantime, while you write your questions, I have one more poll for you. So I created that a while. Oh, but by the way, the poll we had for the lottery ticket, so
Yeah.
500K or maybe win 1 million. So I will end this so we see all of it. There are only 3 votes because this poll is only shown on the Riverside or for the Riverside audience.
Yeah.
Not for the other platforms, but 100%,
Before
so
you
meaning 3
before you
people.
reveal the outcome, I'm very sure. Oh, you did already reveal.
No,
I'm
I
very
did not.
sure.
I say
Okay, good. Okay, good.
100% voted for, but
Because I would bet you that most people would sell it for 500K. Like the only people who would not sell it would probably if we had a millionaire here in the talk. Then he would probably gamble, but everybody else would sell it. Okay, let's see.
that's right. I mean,
Okay, good.
everyone would sell it. And why is that? So to reduce risk, I guess,
Oh yeah,
and
that's
to
the marginal utility. So for like I'm
Mm.
pretty sure no one in this call is an actual multi-millionaire. So like 500,000 is already a lot of money. So if you have the option to gain 500K for sure, we would take it. Like we would not gamble for 1 million because like the going from 0 to 500 is much higher than going from 500,000 to 1 million. Like that jump isn't that big anymore. So yeah. But
Makes
when you
sense.
would
Makes
gamble,
sense.
actually, you know you're rich. That's,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's interesting. So if you happen to know new people and or get to know new people and you ask this question, then you immediately know their bank account. So
Yeah, right. You
great.
don't have to ask for how their wages
Yeah,
are. Like you
great life hack.
play the
So
game. Yeah.
imagine the following new date. Okay, great. And regarding the polls, I would like to launch another poll. So this is, I would like to know in what role do you make your main decisions? So it's really not a good poll, I guess. So are you a developer, technical manager, business manager, and so on? So what is the area where you make your most important decisions with the most important outcomes? And let's see what will happen there. And in the meantime, questions for you, Milena. So you talked a lot about the scientific backgrounds of decision making and also build the bridge towards IT, which was really interesting. So I had this one question that there is this saying where, yeah, basically old people, dying people, the main thing they say is not that they were happy um, that they did not make a decision, but they regretted to not do something. And this, so I don't know, I regret not doing, not traveling around the world or not doing something that is of high risk or something like that. Um, and this, in my mind, is the opposite of this regret avoidance behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So, on the one side, you say, okay, a human being wants to always avoid this regret behavior, so better stay safe. And on the other side, at the end of our lives, we seem to look back and say, I should have taken the chance. I should have taken the risk. So how does that play out? Or is it just life? So we are buggy while we are alive, and at the very end we see what we did, what we should have done differently.
Yeah, I can say very much scientific about it. Just two things that come to my mind from the slides. So the one is it's not really the black swan events, but when you make a decision, you make it with all the information you have in that moment. So if you look at the decision 10 years later, you were a lot smarter about the decision because you know what happened. So it's really unfair to yourself 10 years later to be like, I should have done it. Because at the moment you were in that situation, you probably made the right choice for what you knew in the situation you were in. So I would I would say regret in that moment is always kind of unfair to yourself, but it's just like my opinion. I try not to do that, but I think everybody does.
Oh, that's a nice, yeah, that's a nice answer. So basically, at the very end, you also don't have anything to lose, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, I could
right.
have taken that chance, but so in my position, I don't have anything to lose. Could have taken that chance, but being 20 years old, 30 years old, whatever, then you have tens of years ahead, and you have to carry this. Yeah, the what follows from that decision. Yeah, good answer. Good answer. Another question I have is. So decisions versus responsibility. I love that you talked about decision making in companies and also building the bridge between these decision making processes and the structure of companies. Very interesting. So does that mean that a company grants much freedom and much decision room to the employees? Do you have experiences, or maybe what does the research show? What about the what was it? The responsibility? So if you say, okay, dear employees, you have much freedom, you can decide, you can make decisions. but who is carrying the responsibility? Is it always that if you take the chance, if you take the decision, you also have to carry the responsibility? Or is there also a pattern to say, okay, you can decide, but I, as a management, take the responsibility, or as a company? I mean, to a certain degree, the company always takes responsibility. At least here in Germany, it's rarely the case that you get fired for deciding something. Is that
Yeah,
clear? So basically, the decision making versus the responsibility carrying. Is there
yeah.
something known about that?
Yeah, actually, yeah, that was a slide I threw out of the deck. So that's really interesting. I'll come to that question in a second. Regarding sources or resources, I have 6 slides in my PowerPoint, which just have sources like books on that topic. So if anyone, I'll just send you the slides. If anyone then wants to read more about the topic, there's actually huge books on decision making under uncertainty. Yeah, so there's good resources. Yeah, actually, it can be shown that people make more risky decisions with money that's not theirs. So, if you have your bank account and you spend your money, you're probably not as likely to make decisions as with your company's money because it's not your money and you have yeah, you probably have some kind of responsibility as someone will yell at you, but you most likely are not going to lose your job. So what, like, from my experience, so in my company, I think there's a lot of trust in subordinates. So people get a certain budget and they're trusted to handle it well and to invest it into either employees or whatever, like projects, that kind of stuff. Or we right now we have like some really cool AI stuff that we do in the company, which doesn't get us money right away, but you have to invest because you will have a later outcome. I do see, but not in my company, but in many other like things I hear, that if the market kind of like shuts down, if it gets tough on the market, then this spread of decision making, and you can, that's kind of like withdrawn. So people say, okay, no, you know what, you are not going to make decisions, this is we are going to make the decisions. So but this is just my experience. This is not from science, actually. I think I might look into science, because probably that's a common thing that's actually going to happen. But yeah, so I hope that answers the question.
Oh, yes, yes, it does. I mean, it makes sense. You also talked about that. If there's a high risk, then you are more drawn to safety, of course. And then you, because of that other thing, when you know that people like to gamble more or make more riskier decisions when the money is not theirs, but you as management or as a company holder, as a owner, you would likely not want to have your employees gamble with your money in uncertain times. So basically, that
Yes.
brings
Yeah.
us back to the title of your talk. Great. So yeah, the book recommendations is actually the last questions I had for you. So these slides will be available, as will be the recording on the page, which is techdevcircle.de. And this will also be communicated over the known channels. So in LinkedIn, I will most likely have an article published, and also via Mastodon, via the page, and also via Meetup as a comment. So yeah, but it's best to just follow me on YouTube, so you get the notification that there's a new video, and then there will be the stream in higher quality. So there was this mentioning in the chat. Yes, the recording will be in more quality, audio and visually, and then you can have a look at this. And it also will be cut heavily, so everything I am gibberishing about now, that will be cut out of the stream, so you only have the real pure content that Milena provided. Okay. So are there any more questions from the audience? Or Milena, would you like to add something that came to mind?
I talked a lot, so I think I said it all.
Yeah, and it was of great value. So yeah, Thanks, Milena, again for your time, and I think estimating that to be 1 hour was a good estimation. Two more words from me as the organizer of this event. So I would be happy if you, the audience, would provide some good feedback on meetup.com. I mean, it's a private project. I don't earn anything of that, but it's nice to have some good thumbs up and good ratings there, because some voted the event down for some reason, and it would be nice to have a good rating. But again, I don't earn anything from that. And the second thing is that the next event is from the topic wise, it's clear, because at last week I wanted to talk about the ISAQB CPSA-F, which is the Certified Software Architecture Certified Professional Software Architect foundation level. That is the certification provided by the ISAQB, and it's especially important in the German or Central Europe region. And it's one of the, in my opinion, one of the best investments you can make as a software architect. And this talk is basically ready, but health issues of family came in conflict with the appointment. So it will be scheduled, I think, next week or the week after next week. So yeah, stay tuned on, again, Meetup or the techdevcircle.de page or on LinkedIn, and then you will be notified if this launches. All right. So that was it from us. Thanks again, Milena.
Thank you.
Please stay in the call, Milena. And to the audience, have a really nice evening. And thanks for joining on Riverside, Twitch, YouTube, and LinkedIn. No, LinkedIn, I was not paying attention to if someone was streaming from LinkedIn, but I'm happy that this launched from these other platforms. If you have feedback about this, please bring it to me also via email or via Meetup, a comment. This is of very much interest to me, if these other platforms, if it's a good idea to stream to them as well, or just to concentrate on one of it. All right, so that's it. Have a nice evening to all of you. Thanks to Milena, and stay healthy.
Thank you.
See you soon. Bye.